Welcome to Duality Gamecast, sponsored by Gladiator Games. Today's Battle Royale episode features Alien Frontiers.
Welcome to Duality Gamecast. I'm Matt.
And I'm William.
Today we're taking a look at Alien Frontiers, a game for 2 to 4 players from Game Salute.
Alien Frontiers is a dice-based worker placement game. On your turn, you roll your dice, and based on the values on the dice, you can place them to do various actions. You can use them to get energy, turn energy into ore, get cool power cards, steal from your opponents, mine ore, place colonies in various ways, or increase the quantity of your dice you get to roll each turn. The goal of the game is to end with the most amount of points. The game ends when the last colony of any one player is put on the board. Score is determined by the areas you control and how many colonies you have on the board. So in this case, I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 points, plus an additional point for each area that I control the majority of. An extra 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 16 points. I rock this game.
Okay, Alien Frontiers. So how do we feel about how this game plays?
Different than most I've played. It's a dice-based worker placement game. I've played those before, but usually they care more about the actual raw value of the dice. So bigger dice were better generally. And this one, having a big number wasn't typically any better than having a low number. It was more if you got straights or pairs or sets. So from that standpoint, it was neat that it had a little bit of variance. It didn't just make you pick your most optimal move every turn. You had to have the right straight or set, something like that for it. There's some in-game, end-game shenanigans that can go on in this game, though. There's a series of cards you can purchase, and most of them give you cool bonuses. You can use energy to move a dice around or do something like that. But there's a few select ones that actually move the little colonies on the planet. Mm-hmm. You can use them, like all of them in the same turn. So I think there's 3 different ones. So if you've collected those throughout the game, the last round of the game, you can completely just hose all the other players. You can move people so they have equal number of colonies, so they lose majorities. You can give yourself majorities, and make everybody else ties. And it might have been the intent, but it feels kind of cheap when you're playing it. That you set up, you've had this great board position, and all of a sudden somebody who maybe hasn't, in my mind, played the game as well, but has collected a bunch of cards. I understand that's an avenue to go, but it's a hose move. It's something they do at the very end, and you're like, oh, and there's no way for me to counter that. Oh, and then you place your last thing and the game's over? Yay! So that's something that can come up. How did you feel about the mechanics?
Okay, first off, you're going to hear this word from me probably a lot in this review. They're serviceable. I feel like this game wanted to be Troyes in space. Troyes is another game where it uses dice essentially as your workers, although there are meeples in the game. The dice are your resources, and where you place them matters and triggers different effects. That game has a ton of variability.
Yes.
Because you're playing a different board basically every game. This game is fixed.
Yeah, there's like nine different activities you can do.
This game is fixed. So it works. Everything works fine. I didn't see anything broken about the game. It just doesn't have a lot of pop. I don't get intrigued by your options. You can math them out to a large extent, and I think the person that makes the most efficient move most of the time is going to be the one leading the game. Mm-hmm. The one variable thing you do have are the special cards you can purchase. There's a ton of variability in them, but not necessarily always in a good way. I think there's a ton of variability in them in power level.
Yes. Yeah.
There's ones that just give you a victory point, which could be pretty swingy at the end of the game. There's ones that help you, make you more efficient with resources. And there's ones, like you said, that move stuff around, and that's crazy. The defensive card, there's one defensive card, I don't know what it's called right now. It's like a shield or something.
It's a hologram or something like that,
yeah. You can actually have that stolen from you. I don't know. The cards don't add enough strategy. They add some variability, but they don't add enough strategy to the game for me. The set collection is not really set collection, but you can play your dice by rank in some areas, by set in other areas. And so that's cool. You always have options every turn. And there is a little bit of a haha, beat you to it feel to this game in some places, which usually I like. It can be a little frustrating in this game because there isn't a lot of places to go on the board. So serviceable. You can read everything. Iconography is pretty decent. Pretty obvious what you're looking at. What placing a die somewhere will create for you. So no problems with reading or understanding the rules. Serviceable.
Yeah, and I think it's because because there's only those 9 abilities you pick on the board, I feel like after you play this a few times, you get it's not solved, but you go, I think I understand the best path to victory. I mean, there's some luck stuff involved. You know, if you manage to roll multiple turns in a row, three of the same number, it lets you like power out colonies really quick. Well, but I realize it's a dice-based worker placement game, and it kind of counters some of the stuff I was saying earlier about it's cool that like the highest values aren't the most important ones, but you're still it's so based on luck still in a lot of ways, and there's no way to because there's no variance. There's no real counter strategy, I feel, to do it. It's like, oh, if you get that lucky roll a couple times in a row, you're gonna do a lot better than everybody else. You're gonna be ahead. Because once you start placing colonies on the board, and this is something I didn't touch on in the gameplay, you get powers. So the first person to get a colony on the board gets an ability, which affects one of the other 9 abilities usually on the board. So it means that if the person, I guess it's kind of a runaway thing, if a person gets a colony on the board, but then in turn gives the ability to place colonies cheaper, they're going to keep going, and it's going to kind of snowball. And that's how I've kind of felt when we played, I guess, is that the first people to get on the planet run ahead, and there's no other like board growth. You can only hold so many resources at a time, so you can't be like, oh well, they're going that way, but I'm going to build a bunch of resources and then go big at the end or something like that. It's no, they're on the planet first now, so that's cheaper, and I'm just behind.
Yeah, and I didn't feel like you've played it more than me, but I've played it several times now, and I didn't feel like. It feels like the intent of the designer with the controlling the areas of the planet and getting those abilities was to have the players contest that.
Yes.
To fight over it. And every time I've played it, maybe 1 or 2 areas are really contested. And by the time we're all in a position to start doing that, in-game is like right around the corner. So all it's really doing is affecting those in-game points like you were talking about. It's not fighting over the ability that controlling that area gives you and using it at least for a few turns. You know, at best you're going to get that swing for a turn or 2 and then the game's over.
Right, and I think it's because it's who controls the majority, right? And so if you have 8 colonies you have to place on the board, you put 1 down, now you have majority and special ability. In order for Matt to take it from me, he has to get 2 guys down. Well, in order for me to take that back again, I'm going to have to get 3 down. That's like almost half of my colonies, and we're fighting over one thing. Meanwhile, someone else can just go through and put 1 colony in a bunch of different areas, have a bunch of powers, and end the game. So the competing is a detriment in this game, and I feel like that's, like you're saying, was the intent. But I think mechanically, it feels like something you shouldn't do because you're seeing that like it's that thing when you're playing with a bunch of people of hurting one person is never as good as helping yourself.
It pulls you back.
Yeah.
And the other people not involved in the contest are moving ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And then I also feel like I don't see a lot of different paths to victory. You know, kind of like you mentioned, maybe solving it or picking the most efficient way. I don't see, I'm going mining this game. We're going to play this to the hilt and see.
Yeah.
Some games really give you that feel. Like,
Yes.
I'm doing this. I don't see that in this game. I see you just evaluate the board every turn and evaluate your roll and pick the most efficient thing, which is fine. But, man, for replayability, I would sure like other strategy or tactical options.
I agree.
All right, well, after that rousing discussion of mechanics, let's look at the art and component quality for Alien Frontiers.
All right, so I'm going to start with a hit right away. This is a pet peeve of mine in some of the games we played in the past, some of the games we reviewed in the past, and that's useless score charts. This has a little chart here. It has a cool little rocket, the only rocket in the game, and this game is all about flying rockets around, to keep track of your active score. Every time you put a colony on the board, it goes up. When you tie, though, it can go down. So really, it's taking care of what, in this little zone right here that has, 8 areas on it, it's basically keeping it so you don't have to glance at the board to figure out what your score is. And I feel like it's components that, when we played, we don't use.
Yeah, we don't use it.
So I guess it doesn't really take away from the game, but it's extra stuff that when I first saw, I was like, oh, cool, what's this little rocket do? Oh, it's a score tracker, that's neat. And then, 2 seconds, as soon as someone put down the second colony on the board, I went, oh, wait, it's an add-on, it's fluff.
Yeah.
Other than that, one of the cool selling points to me is the actual little colonies.
Yeah.
I think these things are cool. It's a little dome city. It looks very like old sci-fi style.
Yeah.
You can't really see it on the camera, I know, but it's cool to look up close. The rest of the components, I feel like it goes back and forth. There's the cool little colony things. There's this rocket for the score tracker you don't need. And then there's these orange discs that represent energy. And these gray squares which represent ore, which a lot of games use discs and cubes, but I think it's because there's a couple of high points in the components that it makes me go, oh, this isn't science fiction looking. It's a wood cube. So again, pet peeving. I think at this point I've riled myself up and I'm kind of attacking it, so I don't want to go too much on it. Art style of the game board looks great. I think it has an old sci-fi look. It's really clean, which for a worker placement game, I want to be able to see. It's a little bit icon based, but it's easy to understand. No confusion at all on the board. Everything, there's enough space, everything's set up so you can get a ton of colonies in each area. There's not going to be like, oh no, it's slid over. Everything's, the board itself functions well. I know that they have an add-on you can get, which gives you a bunch of little Dice 6 rockets to use. And the other side of the board has positions on it where you put those, which adds again to the wow, cool factor, and I think will make the little disc thing stand even more. But that's not in the base game.
Right. So
I don't know if that's worth the investment until after you played it and see if you like it. Cards are fine. The general, again, everything's really simple to read and clean. I mean, they did a good job. There's good contrast and everything. The art has kind of like an old sci-fi type look to it. So the art style they went with, I really like it. It invokes that feeling I was expecting from the game.
Mm-hmm.
What are you thinking?
So, like you said, retro sci-fi theme. 50s, 60s look. I like that too. Would love to see that in other games. Love the little colonies. It look like something you get out of a gumball machine, but they're cool.
Yeah.
I think we had some issues with bad dice in our edition.
Yeah, I think it's a couple of the pips, and I think one of the dice was actually a little crooked. And a couple of the colony ships, because of the way they're designed, and I'm not really following for this, one of them had like a little hole in it, but it's a complex little plastic piece. That's not a big deal.
One thing, we've gotten this from some other Game Salute games, is they're all about the tuck boxes. I imagine this is a financial decision. You don't have to put a tray in your box if you give your customer a bunch of tuck boxes. It is a serviceable but inelegant storage solution. I don't like to open a million boxes to set up my game. Give me a nice plastic tray. If I decide that things need to go in bags or boxes, I'll take care of that. Give me a tray. A million tuck boxes is not the answer. And then they're really bland tuck boxes too, so I'd rather just have my nice little black plastic tray. But yeah, the artwork on the cards is all fine. It goes with the theme, kind of that weird retro sci-fi look. So yeah, I'm mixed on the component quality, but okay with the theming of the art.
All right, Alien Frontiers. My opinion, I'm going to go with a like it. And it's a strong like it. The game plays well. It's easy to understand. It's something we can all sit down and play without people going, "Hey, how's that rule work?" or "What's going on?" But it's missing something. I don't know if it's a little bit of component issues or just the fact that there's not a lot of variance in it, but it just needs something more to take it to that next level. So for me, it's a like it.
Alien Frontiers. Can I play this game? Yes. Serviceable. That's all I can say. And therefore, not that fun. I have to pass.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this Battle Royale episode. If you'd like to subscribe, click on me. And thanks to all these people for helping us out. Worker placement game. In it,